Hey y'all, welcome back to our channel. For months, whispers drifted through the air like an approaching thunderstorm, heavy, dark, and impossible to ignore. The world watched as rumors swirled around Pastor John Gray and an alleged affair with a masseuse. Social media erupted with speculation, and news outlets ran wild with the story. Judgment poured in from every corner. But amidst the noise, one voice remained silent, the one that mattered most. Aventer Gray, the woman who had stood beside her husband through mountaintop moments and darkest valleys, chose, deliberately, to say nothing. People questioned her silence. Was she in denial? Was she protecting him? Or was she simply waiting, watching, weighing her truth in silence? No one knew. But behind closed doors, away from the cameras and opinions, a storm brewed inside her. Quiet and relentless. She had seen the headlines, read the comments, felt the sting of judgmental stares. Every sermon her husband delivered, every event they attended together, felt like walking through fire. People dissected her expressions, analyzed her body language, assumed they knew her pain, her choices, her truth. But they didn't. No one knew what she was truly carrying. The weight of a marriage under siege. The ache of betrayal that threatened to unravel her soul. The agony of being caught between loyalty and self-worth. And now, after all this time, she was ready to speak. Not to defend. Not to explain. But to finally tell her story, in her words, with no filter. This was her truth. At first, Aventer did what she had always done. Prayed, trusted, and waited. She tried to tune out the rumors, believing that public life came with inevitable scrutiny. But what started as quiet murmurings grew into an unbearable roar. Screenshots, anonymous sources, alleged recordings. Each new headline carved into her heart like a blade. She wanted to believe him. Wanted to trust the man she had built a life with, the father of her children, the leader of their church. But late at night, when the house was still and her thoughts were loud, doubt crept in like a thief. What if it was true? What if the man who preached about honor and fidelity had betrayed her in the most intimate way? Behind closed doors, her world was crumbling. Friends and family offered advice. Some said leave. Show the world she wouldn't tolerate betrayal. Others urged her to stay. Fight for her marriage. Stand firm in her faith. But none of them had to live inside her pain. None of them felt the daily weight of uncertainty, the quiet devastation of wondering if love had survived or died. The hardest part wasn't the public humiliation. It was the private heartbreak. The way she looked at her children and wondered how this would change their world. The way she smiled through church services while her spirit screamed. The way she began to feel like a stranger in her own home. And then came the breaking point. Not one moment, but many. The way John avoided her gaze when she asked direct questions. The awkward silence where comfort used to live. The creeping realization that she was waiting for a truth that might never come. She could no longer breathe under the weight of unspoken words. The silence that once felt like strength had become a cage. For weeks, Aventer wrestled with herself. Speaking out wasn't just about telling her side. It meant vulnerability, exposure. It meant stepping into the spotlight not as the composed first lady of a congregation, but as a woman wounded. What would it cost her to speak? Would she shatter the carefully crafted image of a perfect family? Would she face backlash for telling the truth? Would she be blamed for breaking the silence? At first, she told herself that silence was noble, that if she just waited, things would resolve. That if she clung tightly enough to hope, maybe everything would go back to the way it was. But silence wasn't healing her. It was hollowing her out. She began to realize that staying silent wasn't protecting her. It was slowly destroying her spirit, her peace, her sense of self. The turning point wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. A conversation with a close friend. A moment in front of the mirror, barely recognizing the woman looking back. A headline that twisted her story into something grotesque. She could no longer stay quiet to protect someone else's reputation. She had to protect her soul. She made the decision. She would speak. Not out of anger, not out of vengeance, but out of truth. The camera was set up. The lighting was soft. Her hands rested in her lap, her pulse pounding in her ears. She had imagined this moment countless times, rehearsed the words, rewritten the ending. And now it was here. "I never thought I'd be sitting here like this," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "Speaking about something so personal, so painful. But I can't run from it anymore." Aventer exhaled. "I owe it to myself, to my children, and to every woman who has carried betrayal in silence." Her voice trembled, but she didn't stop. "For months, my name was dragged into a storm I didn't create. I watched people speculate, assume, judge, without knowing a single thing about what was really happening behind closed doors. And through it all, I stayed silent. Not because I was weak, not because I was in denial, but because I needed time. Time to process. Time to heal." She paused, choosing her next words carefully. "The truth is, I was hurt deeply. I wanted to believe the rumors weren't true. But when the man you love, the man you trust, the man you've built a life with, when there are things that don't align with who you thought he was, it shakes you." Tears slid down her cheeks. "There were days I couldn't get out of bed. Nights I cried until I couldn't move. I wondered if I wasn't enough, if I'd failed. But then I realized I didn't fail. I loved. I gave. I trusted. And if that trust was broken, that's not on me." She leaned forward, eyes locked on the camera. "This isn't about details. It's not about proving or disproving anything. This is about taking back my voice. About healing. About truth." Her voice, once shaky, grew stronger. "I don't know what the future holds, but I do know this: I'm more than a headline. I'm a woman of faith, of resilience, of purpose. And I will not be broken." The world waited for John's response. Would he deny everything? Would he confess? Would he fight for his marriage? Would he fall silent? When he finally spoke, his voice was weary. "I've made mistakes," he admitted. "I've hurt the people I love most. And I am deeply sorry." It was a public confession, quiet, heavy, restrained. But Aventer had heard apologies before. Words were easy. Words had filled the gaps before. But this time, they weren't enough. Behind closed doors, things were different. Conversations felt strained. The space between them felt wider. They danced around the truth, both afraid to step too close. Some days brought flickers of hope, a deep conversation, a shared laugh, a prayer whispered at night. But other days, there was only silence. John tried. He spoke of redemption, of grace, of starting over. But trust is not restored with words. Trust is rebuilt with consistency, with time, with truth. And hers was fractured. The church watched from the sidelines. Some stood behind John, holding to the hope of restoration. Others championed Aventer, urging her to start anew. But no one could make the decision for her. Would she stay? Or would she walk away? Only she could answer that. This wasn't just about John. This wasn't even just about their marriage. This was about Aventer. Her healing, her peace, her future. She had once believed that forgiveness meant staying. That if she truly forgave, she had to keep walking the same path. But now she understood something deeper. Forgiveness wasn't about him. It was about her. And so, in the quiet of her heart, she chose to forgive, not because he had earned it, but because she refused to carry the weight of bitterness one moment longer. She let go, not of the pain, not of the past, but of the burden. But forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. And it didn't mean staying. For the first time, she put herself first. She shed the weight of expectations, the pressure to be the perfect, devoted wife, the fear of disappointing others. She chose herself. Some would call her brave for leaving. Others would call her brave for staying. But bravery wasn't in the choice itself. It was in the strength to make it. She didn't need a press release or a viral moment. Whether she chose to rebuild or walk away, it would be her decision, her journey. And either way, she was finally free. She had spoken her truth. And in doing so, she reclaimed her voice, her power, and her peace.